Okay, so what is really lurking in the shadows of Long Island City? Queens.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about, the usual city critters, rats, maybe a coyote here and there. We're looking into something, well, something much more primal, right? Something that feels like it belongs in, like an ancient forest, not prowling warehouses.
It's a really stark image, isn't it? This clash between ancient legend and this super modern, dense urban landscape, warehouses, alleyways.
It really is. And that's exactly what we're doing today, a deep dive into this fascinating modern urban legend, the
Yeah.
Long Island City werewolf. You asked us to unpack it, the history, the creature itself, its cultural impact, and we've got a pile of sources here from old folklore reports to recent news about actual urban wildlife.
Yeah, our mission really is to sift through all this stuff, pull out the key bits of info, try to separate, the fact from the folklore, which isn't always easy,
Yeah.
and figure out why these tales of a wolf thing keep popping up in such a built-up part of New York. It's as much about the story as it is about, well, us, human nature.
Exactly. So what can you expect? We'll trace how this Revolutionary War swamp monster story might have kind of morphed into this modern city myth. We'll look at the sightings or alleged sightings, I should say, touch on the science or maybe the lack of science, and really dig into the psychology, the sociology. Why did these stories grab hold of us like this?
Okay, let's jump into the origin then, because it's not what you might expect, the whole Long Island City werewolf thing. It actually has roots way back in a historical legend called the Werewolf in Glen Cove's boggy swamp. We're talking American Revolutionary War era, so not new at all, really.
Right. And this original werewolf, it was described as this, like, hideous phantom.
Ah.
Supposedly, it hunted anyone who dared go into the swamp at night, dragged them off, never seen again. Sounds pretty terrifying.
Totally terrifying. But here's the twist from the sources, the main theory now,
Yep.
is that this werewolf, it wasn't true, not a literal monster. It was likely a deliberate fabrication made up by American patriots.
A fabrication, like on purpose.
Yeah, like a strategic move. This werewolf was basically psychological warfare, keep the British soldiers out of the hidden spots in the swamp, and, just as important, scare their horses. Clever, right? Weaponized folklore.
Wow, okay, so a wartime propaganda tool. That's actually brilliant. But that makes the next part even weirder, doesn't it? Because the original story is way out in Glen Cove, rural, swampy Long Island. But your query, the whole reason we're doing this deep dive, is about Long Island City, an industrial area. That's a massive jump geographically and, well, contextually.
It is a huge leap, and it points to something really common in how stories evolve. Folklore does this. Old tales, local legends, they don't just die out, they adapt, they get recontextualized, especially when they move into new, modern settings like a city. You see stuff like this in books, too, like the NYC werewolf tales, where the whole werewolf idea gets woven into, like, city life.
And Long Island City itself, I mean, it used to be all gritty industry, right? Abandoned factories, dark corners. It's gentrifying fast now, but it still has that vibe, those huge warehouses, the shadows. It's almost the perfect backdrop for a modern monster story, that beast in the city thing.
Exactly. And calling it the Long Island City werewolf, that name anchors it right there. It makes it distinct from the older Long Island legends. It's a creature of the city, supposedly.
So when we say werewolf here, what are we actually picturing? The sources mention different terms, right? It's not just one thing. Like the classic werewolf, that usually means shape-shifting, big scary wolf or wolfman mix, fur, fangs, claws, the whole 9 yards.
Right. And traditionally that transformation is involuntary, primal, often tied to the full moon, where they just lose control completely. Then you have lichen, that comes from Greek myth, King Lycaon. Sometimes lichens are shown having a bit more control over the shifting. Not always, but sometimes. Yeah.
And the wolfman. That often implies even more control, maybe changing at will, not tied to the moon. More human-like, maybe, but still with the wolfy bits, fur, claws. For these Long Island stories, the original is called The Werewolf of Boggy Swamp, or The Werewolf. But you mentioned something else. The sources brought up this idea of someone just believing they're a werewolf.
Ah, yeah. That came from the Glen Cove historian Dan Russell. He talked about the lycanthrope, someone who genuinely truly believes they are a werewolf. He made this point. There's usually a grain of truth to many of these legends, implying that if someone thinks they're a werewolf and acts out, well, that could fuel the stories, couldn't it?
That is a really unsettling thought.
Okay.
So let's nail down the specific traits of the Long Island City werewolf, according to the lore. It's usually described bipedal, right? Walking on 2 legs. About human size, but covered in dark, maybe matted fur. And the head is wolf-like, canine. with big jaws, glowing eyes, typical monster stuff.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be agile. Moves on 2 legs or 4, really fast, muscular, good for navigating, rooftops, fences, the urban landscape. Supposedly it has amazing senses, night vision, hearing, smell, all the better to hunt in the city shadows.
But crucially, the Long Island City version usually doesn't involve the whole human transforming by moonlight thing, does it? It's treated more like a cryptid, a
Yeah.
weird creature that just exists. Behavior-wise, it's stealthy, ferocious. Stories say it takes out stray animals, rats, cats, easily. Some tales hint it could take down a person, but no confirmed human attacks, thankfully.
Right. And it's always solitary, a lone hunter, which makes it seem even spookier, I think. Diet is logically whatever it can catch in the city, urban animals, which leads to some grisly stories about like half-eaten carcasses being found.
Yeah.
And it's definitely nocturnal, hiding out during the day, abandoned buildings, maybe tunnels, who knows?
So where does it hang out? The original one, the boggy swamp creature, had its spot clearly defined, that dark, murky swamp between specific roads in Glen Cove. Very remote, very forbidding.
But the modern one, its turf is smack bang in Long Island City, Queens, industrial zones, rail yards, even lurking in the shadows of all those new high-rise buildings. People supposedly see it near desolate spots like Newtown Creek, the border with Brooklyn, abandoned factories under the Queensboro Bridge. Classic creepy places.
Warehouses, vacant lots, loading docks. These are its supposed lairs. It makes you think about how real animals do adapt to cities, though, which kind of weirdly makes the idea seem less impossible.
That's a really good point. We know coyotes have been living in NYC since the 90s. There are families in the Bronx, that one famous coyote in Queens Park. We've seen feral cats explode on Fire Island, filling that niche. Italian wall lizards spreading everywhere after escaping as pets.
Yeah. And remember those other weird animal stories in the city? Guinea pigs in parks, a baby deer, that Cayman Damon the Cayman in Harlem Mere. Seriously, a cayman. Who does that? And even escaped circus animals like that white Bengal tiger years ago. It just shows strange things can turn up in unexpected places. It definitely fuels the imagination for stuff like werewolves.
What's also interesting is how local the Long Island City werewolf legend feels. It's confined to this relatively small area of Queens. Unlike rural werewolf stories that might cover a whole county, this feels very community-based, like a story people in that specific neighborhood tell.
And there are other cryptid spots in New York, right? Not necessarily werewolves, but Central Park pops up in some werewolf art, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
And out on Long Island, you've got Sweet Hollow Road, Mount Misery, stories of hairy monsters there, plus mentions of dogmen in a New York context, which connects to those infamous sightings in places like Wisconsin.
So, okay, the stories are there, but what about actual proof? Evidence. So the original Boggy Swamp Werewolf, it's pretty much just those old historical accounts, oral tradition, like that 1985 article by Bunny Cryan. No modern sightings of that specific thing.
Right. But the Long Island City one, it had that big moment, didn't it? The 2015 coyote incident. That really got people talking. March 2015, people saw this animal on the roof of the LIC bar on Vernon Boulevard. Looked like a wolf or something. Caused a whole scene. Police came with tranquilizer guns.
Yeah, and it turned out to be just a coyote, which, as we said, are around NYC now. But for that little while, before they knew what it was, the chatter was definitely a werewolf in Queens. And the fact that it escaped, slipped away into an old factory, that just added to the mystique for some people, Like the werewolf outsmarted them.
Beyond that one big event, though, the evidence gets pretty thin, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There are anecdotes. Like a security guard seeing a tall, hunched figure with pointed ears. Urban explorers claiming they found big paw prints or heard growling in old buildings. But mostly, it's blurry photos, shaky videos. What you call blob squatch syndrome. Could be anything, really.
Exactly, and that's the core issue. Physical evidence, it's just not there. For the Long Island City werewolf, there are no confirmed bodies, no clear tracks that couldn't be a dog or coyote, no DNA, nothing solid.
And scientifically, a human physically changing into a wolf, it's just not biologically possible, is it? There's no known mechanism for that kind of transformation. It breaks, like all the rules of biology.
Right. The closest thing in reality is that lycanthrope idea we mentioned, clinical lycanthropy. It's a rare psychiatric condition where someone believes they are transforming. It's a delusion, a mental state, not a physical change.
So what are people seeing? The most likely scientific explanation is misidentification.
Right.
Combined with maybe pareidolia. Seeing patterns where there aren't any, like seeing a face in the clouds or a monster in a shadow when it's just a weirdly shaped bush or a big dog.
Precisely. And there are so many examples of this. People mistaking a moose for something else, an ostrich for a giant turkey, a groundhog for an alien, or closer to werewolf territory, a big Newfoundland dog mistaken for a bear, or even a great blue heron misidentified as the Jersey Devil because of its shape or coloring in bad light.
So the skeptical take is pretty straightforward. The Long Island City werewolf is probably a large coyote, maybe an escaped wolf-dog hybrid. People do keep those illegally, even in the city, or just a big stray dog like a German Shepherd mix. These are all animals that could be mistaken for something more monstrous, especially at night in a spooky industrial area.
And going back to the original Boggy Swamp legend, if that was just a clever wartime story, a fabrication, well, that gives us a rational, non-supernatural origin for the whole lineage, doesn't it? Psychological warfare, not an actual cryptid.
Yeah, when you put it all together, the lack of solid proof for the modern sightings, the plausible explanations like misidentification, and the historical context to the original story, it really points towards folklore, human perception, not some undiscovered animal.
But that brings us back to the why. Why does the story hang around? Why do you, our listener, find it so fascinating? Psychologically, it taps into a lot. That tendency for pareidolia we talked about, seeing monsters in the shadows. Fear plays a huge role, too. It sharpens senses, but it can also warp what we see. And werewolves, they hit those deep fears, the predator, the beast within.
And collective memory, right. If a story is told enough in a community, people start expecting it. An odd noise, a glimpse of something large, suddenly it fits the narrative that's already there. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy almost.
Absolutely. And sociologically, these urban legends, they often act like a mirror to what a society is anxious about. Crime, safety, change, the unknown. Sometimes blaming a monster like a werewolf is easier than confronting real-world dangers like criminals or just random accidents. It externalizes the fear, like the Cropsey legend in NYC, another boogeyman taking the blame.
Sharing the story also builds community, doesn't it? Gives people a shared narrative, something local and unique to talk about. Maybe in Long Island City, with all the gentrification, the werewolf story is a weird way of holding on to some of the area's gritty mystery, pushing back against everything becoming shiny and new.
That's a great insight. And there's the theme of otherness, too. The werewolf is human but becomes other, becomes monstrous. That can reflect anxieties about people who are seen as different, or fears about the wild side of society itself. Remember Dan Russell's grain of truth idea? Real events like that coyote on the roof, or maybe someone acting strangely, get woven into the bigger legend.
Plus, you can't discount hoaxes or just media influence. People see werewolf movies, maybe someone pulls a prank, puts a blurry photo online. It doesn't take much to keep a story like this alive, even if there's no famous, proven hoax.
And this Long Island City tale, while specific, it fits into this huge global web of similar stories, doesn't it? Shapeshifters, human-animal hybrids, they're everywhere in folklore.
Yeah. North America alone has tons. The Roanoke werewolf, 7 feet tall, supposedly bulletproof. The Beast of Bray Road in Wisconsin sounds really similar to the LIC description, actually.
Yeah.
Big, furry, wolf head, glowing eyes, just in the countryside.
Then you have dogmen, these tall, black, wolf-like bipeds. The Wendigo from Algonquian lore, less werewolf, more cannibal spirit, but still monstrous and terrifying. And Navajo skinwalkers, sorcerers changing into animals.
And looking globally, Greek lichens, often cursed, Norse berserkers channeling the wolf's fury.
The Rougarou in Cajun country, another swamp werewolf, kind of like the Glen Cove one, sometimes a punisher. Mexican Naholes, shapeshifters often seen as thieves. Even the Inuit Aklut, an orca-wolf hybrid. That's a wild one.
It's amazing how many cultures have these figures. The details change, but the core ideas are often there. Shape-shifting, being part animal, predatory, linked to darkness or wilderness, fear of the unknown, often with a moral lesson tucked in somewhere.
But the Long Island City version does have its unique angle. Those possible origin as a military tactic is really unusual. And its adaptation to this super urban setting, it's the ultimate predator where it shouldn't be story, like something out of the movie Wolfen or those real urban legends about big cats roaming London.
So we've gone from a Revolutionary War swamp, possibly haunted by a patriotic phantom, all the way to the industrial heart of modern Queens. We saw how one real coyote can set imaginations on fire, and how science struggles to explain away that deep human need for mystery.
And that big question is still hanging there for you, isn't it? The original werewolf, clever trick, or real phantom, and the Long Island City one. Despite the lack of proof, the story is still part of the city's fabric. Why?
What are people really seeing or hearing in those LIC shadows? Could technology ever give us a real answer, like better night vision cameras everywhere? Would we catch a coyote, a prankster, or something else entirely.
And maybe the bigger question is, even if it is all just stories, why do we keep telling them? Why invent beasts for our concrete jungles, the places we think we've conquered? What does that say about us?
Yeah. The persistence of the Long Island City werewolf, even without solid proof, it just shows how powerful folklore is, how adaptable. It reflects our fears, builds community, makes us question what's real. So think about it. What stories does your town or city tell? What do its local legends say about its own anxieties, its identity? Keep digging into those tales. You might be surprised what you find out about your own world.